Boom! Welcome back to this real estate show. Now, today, I'm sorry about the last video. We had a little technical issues, but hey, we are here right now. Welcome back to this show. I want to appreciate you for jumping on here on this show. This is the JR Real Estate Show. On this show, we talk about everything real estate, how to invest the right way in real estate in Nigeria. And this is the fourth episode of this show. All right, and we are taking it stronger and stronger. And on today's show, of course, I have with me my colleague who I'll be bringing on board again today. But on today's show, we're having a very interesting and fantastic topic. You don't want to miss it at all. We're going to be talking about, things as a couple, what you should know about buying real estate together in Nigeria. So factors, things every couple must consider or know before buying property together in Nigeria. All right. And on this show today, of course, my colleague, my friend, my brother, barrister, even though he doesn't like the word barrister Raymond Ijoma. Welcome back to this show, sir. Thank you for jumping on here. Welcome here, sir. So please, in the short moment, I'm going to introduce myself, and then please go ahead and introduce yourself. So for those that are watching this show for the first time, I'm Jeff Anozie, and I'm a real estate consultant. Our goal on this channel and on this show is to help you make safe and profitable real estate investment here in Nigeria, investments that you can make and go to sleep, all right, knowing that it's profitable and it's safe. All right, so we do this by informing and educating you on things you should know about real estate in Nigeria. All right, and I want my colleague to go ahead and introduce himself so that we can kick this show off.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Raymond Ijoma, and I'm a lawyer with a niche in property law. I'm also a real estate entrepreneur and the managing director of Fortune Ray Limited. Ray. Our goal is to make you real estate smart, as well as with the ultimate intent and purpose of ensuring that you are a millionaire real estate investor. And of course, myself and my brother, Jeff Anozie, are doing this together with that intent to make sure that you are a serial millionaire real estate investor in the right way.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Now, quickly, on the last few shows, we talked about red flags, that you should avoid before investing in real estate in Nigeria. So we are going to leave a link to those shows in the comments so that you can go watch them later. All right, so that you can enjoy the rich information in those particular shows. All right, but for today, without wasting too much time, our time is fast spent already. We're just going to go straight to the point and talk about factors or things every couple must consider or know before buying property together. Now, this is born from lots of experiences and mistakes a lot of couples have made over time. And of course, we thought it wise, all right, being that as a couple, you love yourselves and you feel like, okay, if you do this together and then you're buying this property together, you're showing a sign of love and all of that is good. All those are very good. However, it's important that you do it with knowledge, and that is the goal. Like my brother and colleague actually just said now, the goal is to arm you with the right information so that you make knowledgeable decisions, all right, around real estate in Nigeria. So please, Mr. Ijoma, barrister Raymond Ijoma, please, over to you, sir, from a legal point of view, all right, and based on your experience as a CEO of an indigenous real estate company that is making a lot of waves right now in Nigeria. What do you have to share? Like, how can you? What information do you have to share with us regarding this subject matter today?
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Jeff. First, let's start to establish or continue from where you stopped. You see, love is a beautiful thing. Love is a beautiful thing, and love can make us do a lot of things, right? It can make us do a lot of things. And the truth about it is, as far as relationships are concerned, issues are bound to occur, whether there is love or not, whether it's the Romeo and Juliet type or not, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So really, issues are bound to occur. As a matter of fact, if couples can have issues because of toothpaste, because of a pen, who removed the pen from here, if couples can go to the point of having like issues, real time issues because of that, then imagine investing in a property worth, say, 10 million naira, 5 million naira, 20 million naira. Really, they expect big issues to come out of that. And that is where we come in the course of doing this in the street, we have seen a number of issues arising based on couples buying properties together, right? And get the point. The goal of this show is not to prevent you or to stop you from buying properties together, right? Our goal here is to help you with precautionary guidelines or possible things or steps that you should take or know and do so that you minimize the issues that will come in or may come in. Let's not say may, that will come. Okay, yeah, may is better, Mr. Jeff. Okay, that may come in at the end of the day, right? We are not praying that your marriage experiences issues that will really lead to the point where you are discussing on you going your way, this person going his way, right?
yeah,
But in
yeah,
law, we're taught, as a matter of fact, we're specifically taught in class that you don't do the gentleman kind of business with your wife, right? It's not because
yeah.
you don't trust her or him, you don't trust your spouse. It's simply because it helps you moving forward. And in a place like outside Nigeria, our Western world, we have stuff like prenuptial agreement, and that
Yeah.
really is not. They don't see it as any issue. But if you bring that up here, you might find families. In fact, they might call a family meeting because of that.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
Okay, so but we have to grow to a point where we can really do certain things on paper and not just do them by word of mouth, right? And
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
foundation upon which we're having this conversation. I remember that there's this client that reached out from outside the country. As a matter of fact, the whole thing was also in conjunction with my brother Jeff Anozie, and we
yeah,
had this issue that the lady in question or the woman in question had issues with a husband, or they're having issues, and the issue was the whole thing. The details are, I don't want to really go very specific on the details, but at the end of the day, they're looking for how to severe. You want to go your way, you want to go your way, and what happens? What should we do? This one is tied down, the other one is tied down, and all of that. And what happens when, okay, this one doesn't agree? I'm not signing any document. The property is ours. You're not going to do anything about it. You are stuck
yeah.
here, and all of that. And then we're not ready to have a divorce because of the children, right? And a lot of things just come in between and it doesn't make sense. But when the documents or the title documents specify certain things, no matter what happens at the end of the day, you could just easily sort out yourself and move on, right? So
True.
that's the essence or the summary of what we're going to do today. And to start with that, also we're going to address some issues that happen, or some, I think this is for lawyers, that lawyers, where lawyers make mistakes in the course of doing this, and it really doesn't help the married couples, right? And so, on that basis, we're going to start by talking about uh, what are the things you should do before you consider buying properties together as a couple. Of course, you already looked at the issue of your finance. How do we want to raise the money? But first, let me say that it's absolutely possible to buy property in the name of your wife. I have clients who do that. I have a client who has bought 10 acres of land, 3 plots of land, and all that. He buys them in the name of his wife. He has his reasons, right? And that is not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is you and your husband sitting down and saying, okay, honey, we want to buy a property and I want us to buy it together. Now, that is the foundation upon which the transaction starts. And once that happens, you must, that is why I said what to do. You must get a lawyer involved in this. This is not the type of transaction that you go to the typist in the streets and you are like, okay, prepare this. Oh, Jesus. You prepare this agreement for me, or type it like this. You bring a sample, type it out, and get it done. This is not a transaction you do like that. Even though this is even wrong. If you are doing a normal transaction, this is way wrong, right? The husband and wife buying a property together, and you are going to the street to do that. This is not the kind of transaction. This is also not the kind of transaction that you prepare. The agent prepares the agreement and then looks for a lawyer advice on what you want to do as far as this transaction is concerned. So here is it. There are two ways of owning property generally. Basically, like ownership, types of ownership. We have the tenancy in common and we have the joint tenancy. You could also refer to it as tenants in common or joint tenants, right? And before you go ahead and just buy the property as a husband and wife, it's important that you determine under which of these you want to come under, or under which of these you want to come or transact. However, let me just explain them briefly so you understand or appreciate why it's better to use the one I would recommend. And please note, it's important that we know this, Mr. Jeff, that what we're doing here on all of our shows is not specific advice or specific consultancy. When you want to do anything related to what we're doing or what we're suggesting on this show, this is educative, right? When you want to do anything, you should ensure that you seek specific consultancy, right? And this is also by no means advertisement. It's simply educating you and ensuring that you have the right information before you go ahead and carry out specific or do specific things with respect to the subject matter that we're talking about. All right. So I talked about tenancy in common and tenancy in common and joint tenancy.
Joint tenancy.
Now, for tenancy, yes, sir. For tenancy in common, it's simply an arrangement where it can be more than two persons, right? Come together and say that okay, let us buy a property. Suggest this strategy a lot when for young people who want to invest in real estate and they don't have the funds to do that. So they can simply like, okay, instead of only coming together to buy a shabby, right? Or go and spend money at good store.
Or committee of friends.
It could simply
coming together to do
committee of friends, and all of that. It could come together and say, okay, I have 500K or I have 250K, you have 500K, or I have 400, you have 600. Let us buy this property together, right? This arrangement can come into play here. And again, it's important to can come together to get that done. And by way of what they determine, they could become, since one is bringing 400,000 and the other one is bringing 600,000, they could specify that in the agreement, and automatically for tenancy in common, you could know it by when you see words of severance in the agreement or in the title document, or words of severance in this context could connote 50-50, 40-60, equally, and all of that, right? You could denote it by that. Although you have to read, we are taught to look at documents in general. So you could have a paragraph that is saying something, and another paragraph that is saying something else. So you have to ensure that you are looking at it together collectively by way of community reading before you can determine what exactly it is. But what I just shared are specific ways that you could easily denote that, okay, this is tenancy in common, or this is joint tenancy. Okay, right. For joint tenants or joint tenancy, it's also an arrangement where two persons can come together and decide to, okay, want to buy a property and bring funds together. And by virtue of what they determine, the most important thing, like I said, this section is what to do. The most important thing you must note as far as this particular part is concerned is that you must use the phrase joint tenants rather. Make sure there's a phrase joint tenants to establish the intent of what both of you want to do, right? You don't just jump at the point where you just, okay, we're buying properties together, right? And specifically as husband and wife, if your intent is to buy property together, then my suggestion is that you go ahead or buy under the platform of joint tenant. And here are the advantages. The advantages simply are, number one, please excuse me for a moment.
Okay. Okay, I guess he needs to sort a few things out. So, if you're just joining us, this is the real estate show. And on this show, basically, our goal is to educate you on the best ways to invest or buy property in Nigeria so that you have peace of mind. All right, you have peace of mind, and is profitable and safe. And if you're new on this channel, please hit the subscribe button there and like this video if you found some value. And we do this show every Sunday by 8:30 p.m. All right, every Sunday by 8:30 p.m. we'll go live and talk about things around real estate. And if you have questions, please type it in the comment box down there. All right, and if you want to come live as well, you can just indicate and we can allow you to come live so that you can also talk or ask your questions. All right, so my colleague is back, so let's get back at it. All right, sir, so you were talking about tenancy in common and joint tenancy. Even though we didn't get the explanation of tenancy in common so much, because I think your network had some, some stuff. But yes, but we can just continue with the joint tenancy. Then after which we can now go back and explain the tenancy in common again, if you don't mind, sir.
Okay, I think it's important to explain it first before because there wouldn't be any reason going back to tenants in common. Because as far as married couples are concerned for this show, the most suggestion is for joint tenancy. Right? So again, I said that for a tenancy in common, the basic difference is that a couple of persons can come together and decide to buy property. The basic difference is that they have words of severance in the agreement. You can bring 500. Yeah, you can bring 500,000, and I bring 600,000. Okay, 500,000. You can bring 600, and I can bring 400. That way, it is 60-40. right? That way it is 60/40. We could specify that in our agreement, and by virtue of that, we become tenants in common,
Tenants in
right?
common.
And yes, we're virtue of that because there's a word of severance in it. There's an explanation that specifies, or there are words that specify that, okay, this is how we got into this transaction, and this is the status of our transaction. And why this makes sense for people who are not married people is because when one party dies, his children or her heirs, people who maybe his parents, brothers, sister, next of kin, can take ownership of his rights in that property.
Oh, okay.
While for joint tenants, if one person dies, the property doesn't flow down to the next person. It doesn't flow down to the children or the heirs or his estates, right? It flows sideways to the other party.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
say for
Okay.
instance, between the husband and the wife, for instance, the husband dies first. The property doesn't flow to any other person. It automatically flows to the
To the
wife
wife.
who is alive. And that is what is referred to as the principle of survivorship, or the rule of survivorship, which applies to tenants, joint tenancy,
Joint tenancy.
right? So under joint tenancy, there's a rule of survivorship. If one person dies, the other person automatically becomes the owner of the owner of the entire property, right? However, for tenants in common or tenancy in common, when one person dies, the title flows to his children
Down.
or his next of kin.
Next of
That
kin.
way, he could even write a will, and it will flow down to the next his children, right? Automatically, there
Yeah.
won't be any dispute because that's the intent of the document. However,
Yeah.
for joint tenants, if you write a will, it can't flow. You can't by will transfer interest because there's a rule of survivorship. And remember that in a will takes effect after the death of the person who wrote the will, right? And by virtue of that, it terminates or breaks the rule. But while you are
Oh.
alive as a spouse, while you are alive as a spouse, you can decide to transfer interest in that property because you are joint tenants. And that is where it makes sense for those who go into divorce. Because if you are divorced or you are having marital issues and you want to sell, there's a permission to sell, there's a right to sell your interest in the property. And don't forget, it doesn't matter whether the husband brought 95% of the money or the wife brought only 5%. What matters thereafter is that, excuse me, what matters thereafter is that they are both, by virtue of the title document, joint tenants. So if a husband and a wife are having issues, and the husband or the wife is like, okay, I want to sell this property, I'm tired of you, I'm tired of that, and the husband or the wife is being, or the other spouse is being stubborn about it and refuses to sign any document, the wife can go ahead and transfer interest to the other person or to whoever. But what happens at that point is automatically, by virtue of that transfer, automatically the whole thing falls or becomes tenants in common or tenancy in common. I don't know. I think it's getting a little technical. Mr. Jem, do you understand?
I yes, to a large extent, I understand. I understand to a large extent. But when you say tenancy, 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 for the sake of we lay people, tenancy means ownership, right?
mm, mm,
Okay. Okay,
okay,
that's fine.
entirely. Entirely, it doesn't mean ownership. Entirely, it doesn't mean ownership. It's simply saying that we are okay. I think we can use for layman purposes. Forgive me. For layman purposes, we could say neighbors,
Neighbors, okay.
co co-workers, co-owners.
Co-owners,
Right?
okay, that
We are
makes sense.
co-owners, but there are two types of co-ownership.
Okay,
Please excuse me. Okay, I'm fine. There are two levels of co-ownership or types of co-ownership, right?
okay,
So for the
okay.
first co-ownership or type of co-ownership, if one of the parties die, the children can inherit the property, his interest. While for the other
Okay.
type of co-ownership, if one person dies, the title doesn't go down to any other person, it goes sideways to
Side.
the other party, right? And this is why couples should go ahead or be certain that when they are buying properties, they buy as joint tenants, right? Because it's if one person dies, the title flows to this other person, right?
Other
And
person.
also the
Yeah.
other party cannot tie you down on the basis of both of you bought the property together. You can buy property together on two levels. Do you understand? So
Yes.
moving forward, if one person refuses you or tries to tie you down, one of the advantages again is that you can transfer interest and move on. He cannot force you in that regard. All right, so that's part of the advantages of that. I hope that is clear enough.
Yes. 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 Makes
I
sense
think
now.
it will also make more sense when our audience get to ask questions and note we cannot entirely expose all of this. It's not possible, right? Your specific transactions can help us determine the specifics that we can use for your documentation or transaction as the case may be. Right. So let's move
Okay.
forward a bit to the point where we talk about the things that you should not do.
Okay.
Now, the most common one about the things that you should not do is the part where lawyers say Mr. and Mrs. Jeff Anozie. That part is totally okay. That part should not be. That part should not. It shouldn't be so. And I'm going to explain the legal angle to it and also the logical angle to it. First, legally, I understand the concept of marriage, statutory marriage. You are now one under the law.
Yeah.
You are now one by virtue of marriage
Okay.
under the Matrimonial Causes Act, under the Marriage Act, right? However, there's another concept in law that talks about corporate personality, that talks about legal capacity. It's legal capacity rather, not corporate. Now, by virtue of or by legal personality, it simply says that you as an individual possess the capacity to do something by law,
Okay.
right? Now, logically, if you look at Mr. and Mrs., I want to ask you a sincere question. It's nothing related to law, Mr. Jeff. Please, can you explain to me who Mr. and Mrs. Jeff Anozie is as a person?
It means myself and my wife. that that that's what it's supposed to mean, right? Mr. and Mrs. Jeff Anderson.
Yes, but
Anyways, anyway, yeah.
in law, it cannot mean that because Mr. and Mrs. Jeff Anozie is not an entity, right? Because a person, for instance, somebody below 21 or a minor generally does not have capacity to purchase a property. There are exceptions to it or other ways around it, But generally, a minor cannot own property. It
Okay.
doesn't possess the legal capacity to do that. Talking about Mr. and Mrs. Jeff Anozie, in the context of using Mr. and Mrs. Jeff Anozie as the person buying a property, who signs? Because don't forget, you have one name there, Mr. and Mrs. Jeff Anozie. Are both of you going to sign on top each other's signature, or
Okay, that's so funny.
do you
That is
understand?
that is so
Because
funny.
really, sir, really,
Yeah.
it logically doesn't make sense. Legally, it also doesn't make sense because there are only two people who that possess the legal capacity to purchase or buy a property or sell a property: a corporate entity
Okay.
registered by law under the
Mm-hmm.
Corporate Affairs Commission under the Companies and Allied Matters Act, that guarantees or gives you the legal capacity to purchase or transact in respect of properties. Okay, that by virtue, and people who fall, or the companies or organizations that fall into those categories, are limited liability companies,
Okay.
churches that are registered. One of these days, Mr. Jeff, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about all these organizations or corporate entities that just do certain things and that doesn't make sense when they do not have the capacity to do so. So a church generally, no matter how big, no matter how large, no matter how powerful or anointed the man of God is, or the church is generally, if they don't have a corporate entity, if they don't have a legal personality or legal capacity, they don't have it. Anointing cannot give you legal capacity. All right.
Word.
Okay. So it must be a registered church, a registered NGO, a registered foundation, a limited liability company. A business name doesn't have corporate personality, it doesn't have legal capacity to do certain things. The same way, Mr. and Mrs. Jeff Anozie is not a legal entity.
Hmm.
What makes them legal entity is that they are separate individuals. It doesn't stop them from being husband and wife. However, their names in their personality must be recognized as such. And that is where, if you want to transact, you don't use Mr. and Mrs. Jeff Anozie. You simply say Mr. Jeff Anozie, then
Ah,
second party, Mrs. Sorry, what's your wife's name?
Esther, Jeff.
Mrs. Esther Anozie or Mrs. Esther Jeff Anozie, right? That's a better way to put it. That way, you have two separate columns, one for Mr. Jeff to sign and the other for his wife to sign.
Awesome.
You understand?
Awesome. Yeah.
Right? So that's how it works in that regard. So I get to see it every now and then, or documents that are carrying Mr. and Mrs. Jeff Anozie, and that doesn't, so not Mr. and Mr. and Mrs. And that doesn't make sense. In fact, it is so sad. This is not as a way of derogation or trying to derogate lawyers or some lawyers, right? There's no no one is perfect. We can't know it all. But the reason it hurts me, this particular one, is because it was obvious. Now, what happened was that I did the transaction. They were a couple that bought properties together, and I separated the parties, Mr. D's and Mrs. D's, and then they bought the property in that way. They at sometime this year they wanted to sell,
Okay.
and in fact, the person who reached out, the my client in this contest reached out and told me that I should do the documentation for the other people, and for some reasons, and they got a lawyer to do that. And when the lawyer came, already I told, because I kind of tried to educate my client before I go ahead and do certain. So I really gave him, the husband in question, some level of education as per why certain things were done in certain ways.
Okay.
And when the other lawyer reached out, he brought a draft of what he wanted to use. as the title document. And what happened in that was it was obvious that I used Mr. This and Mrs. This, separate columns, separate signature columns, separate names. This madam, this lawyer, went ahead. Please, you have to edit that part. This lawyer, before these people will come for me, this lawyer went ahead, and in all sincerity, if the lawyer did not see Mr. Jeff and Mr. This and Mrs. This separately, I believe very strongly that the lawyer would have combined both names together. But since there was a foundation of Mr. This separately and Mrs. This separately, she eventually still used that, but added only one signature column for them to sign.
Wow.
So my client asked her a question. Ma, who is signing? Are we supposed to, when he forwarded it to me and I suggested that, okay, since it has been done that way, I think the best thing that they could do is she should sign on one side of the column while he should sign on one side of the column while she should sign on the other side of the column. And that was what my client eventually told the lawyer. And the lawyer said, no, it doesn't matter. Both of you are one. Any one of you that signs is okay. And I'm like, at the end of the day, that's the way they did it.
Wow.
But
wow.
the problem or the future problem with that, and that's why I always say that it makes sense to prepare title documents with a paraventure mindset, right? Imagine that because already by virtue of that, it is only one party that signed. At the end of it was the wife that signed. In fact, okay, what she suggested was that once one person signs, not an issue, the other party can sign as witness. And I'm like, when this whole thing was transacted in the very beginning, did the wife sign in the capacity of a witness or in the capacity of a transferor? Do you understand? The wife was a transferor, not a witness. So if that property is to be sold, she should also sign as a transferor selling that property. Logically, if you look at it, was that property indeed sold? I will leave you to answer that question. Because it's possible that tomorrow that property can become a subject matter of dispute. And one technical lawyer from somewhere will come out and say that property was never sold. It was not competently sold.
Wow.
Do you understand? So the basic point is these two people have separate legal personality or capacity. If they are transferring interest, they should do so by virtue of that, by virtue of their individual separate capacity, not as Mr. and Mrs. I think we have explained this part enough.
Wow.
So,
Beautiful.
in summary, never transact as Mr. and Mrs. Let it be in separate individual capacities. Right. Okay, go on.
So this separate individual capacity means Mr. For instance, Mr. Jeff Anozie and Mrs. Esther Jeff Anozie, that kind of thing, right?
Yes.
So now, and then the columns, the places to sign are two different columns. One for Mr. Jeff Anozie and one for Mrs. Jeff Anozie. Awesome. So welcome guys to this show tonight. This is the JR Real Estate Show. On this show, we talk about real estate. We talk about everything real estate. The goal is to give you the right information to make smart, profitable, and safe real estate transactions here in Nigeria. And with me is my brother and colleague, Barrister Raymond Ijoma. And we're talking tonight about factors every couple must consider or know before buying properties together. This is a very serious topic, all right? So if you're new on this channel, please go ahead and hit this subscribe button so that you get to see or know whenever we bring up this type of content for you. All right. If you have been following us for a couple of weeks now, want to appreciate you for coming back and watching over and over. Please, we'd like to know if you have questions, you have concerns, you have things you want us to talk about. Please leave it in the comments box so that we can answer them tonight or on subsequent shows. All right. So thank you, sir. Please go ahead.
All right. I think one more thing we should talk about is if couples intend buying properties via a mortgage or through a mortgage. Our time is almost up, night 27th p.m. Okay, so I'll try to do this quickly so we don't keep you for so long. So if you want to buy properties by way of a mortgage, I think certain decisions you must really look at specific things. So usually, if it's there are types of mortgage, different types of mortgage. But I'll simply just summarize it so you understand. First of all, what's a mortgage? A mortgage is simply a transaction where you can decide to get a property when you don't have the money, and then you can, through the property or through other means, get to pay for the property over a period of time. The way mortgage works abroad is somewhat different from the way it works in Nigeria.
Yeah.
For some of which I've gotten involved in, you get to see a mortgage where they tell you to bring 40% of the 40% of the
entire sum.
the amount of consideration, the entire sum. And I'm like, if I have 40%, why not?
What's
I just borrow money and buy. Do you get? So we'll ignore that and just talk about it in a summary. But if you want to consider buying properties as husband and wife and as a couple, then you must be specific as to who is going to have the mortgage in his or her name, right? Because at the end of the day, if issues arise between the husband and the wife, it means that the person that has that in his name or her name will be the one bearing it ultimately when issues arise. Right. Awesome. And on the other side of the flip, you could have somebody else enjoying the dividend while the other person is suffering and making payments to the bank. Okay. So it makes sense to, and some of these things you could do with a prenuptial agreement, or since it's post-marriage now or post-wedding, you could have separate documents that help you to determine or define certain things. I think the key word is define. You know, when we used to do relationships where our relationship pastors or teachers will always say, learn to define the relationship. Once the guy is coming to close, ask him, where is this relationship going? Define the relationship. In the same vein, before you go ahead and do certain transactions as far as properties are concerned, even generally, but specifically as far as properties are concerned, as husband and wife, if you cannot go to the point, or if it is not direct with respect to a purchase, whenever you are doing other things, if the document cannot specifically help you sort out who is to do this, who is to do that, then get a separate document that helps you to define. So this other document serves as subsidiary or helps to corroborate certain things to help the other document or to help the transaction, right? So the key word is learn to define everything you are doing. It is not because we are praying for issues to arise. It is simply because certain things may come up. Yeah. The man can just decide to like one lady outside and get another wife. Right.
Awesome.
You know, so and then I think I should add, it's a little vague for most persons. By law, any woman, a woman can purchase property in her name and it will not even be her husband's business, right? You have the capacity. The fact that you are married doesn't prohibit you from doing that. You have the capacity to purchase a property in your name as Mrs. Esther,
Jeff.
right? Esther
Yeah.
Jeff Anozie, and your husband, okay, your husband, Mr. Jeff.
Say that again.
No, I didn't say anything.
Awesome,
Okay,
awesome,
so
awesome.
I think that should be that. Let's have questions
Yeah, so
if there are.
Mr. Joshua said awesome. Thank you, sir, for jumping on here. Um, okay, Mr. Osita. I think this is Mr. Osita. Welcome, sir. Thank you for
Yeah,
joining. He said it's Monday here, but I couldn't miss this for anything. Thank you, sir. We
we
totally
appreciate you,
appreciate
sir.
that. Appreciate you, sir. Thank you for being on this show. Mr. Anna is asking, he said, what are the mortgage opportunities and options? By the way, sir, Mr. Anna, thank you so much for jumping on here. We appreciate you, sir. So he's asking what are the now. I don't know if this question is clear, but what are the mortgage options, opportunities and options? Is it clear enough, or should we ask
It
him to
it
ask?
it's absolutely clear. However, it is an extensive conversation for, I guess, a 30 minutes show.
Ah, really? Awesome. Okay, so
Yes.
we'll need to mark this and create a show out of it, right? Now, is he
Yeah.
asking, please, are you asking mortgage opportunities for couples, or what are the general mortgage opportunities in Nigeria, right? I wish you can be specific about that so that we can know know how to answer that question, sir. Yes, Mr. Osita, thank you so much for joining here. Now, please, a quick question. Now, what if I've heard about situations where I've heard about situations where a husband loves his wife so much. So I love my wife so much, and I decide to buy a property, and I decide to buy it in her name. All right, I decide to buy it in her name. All right, and a situation where, God forbid, or stuff happens, and then we need to divorce or separate. What happens?
Okay, you are this is a trap for me because we didn't plan to talk about this today. Okay, but I'll answer.
Okay.
What happens is, first off, I remember talking about the fact that you buying property in the name of your wife. I also remember making reference to my client that has bought about 3 properties. I did documentation for them, about 3 properties in the name of his wife,
Okay.
while he signed as witness. The wife did not bring 1 cent,
Time.
a dime, right? But at that point, he bought it in the name of the wife. But eventually, they're having uh, experiencing marital issues and they want to divorce. At that point, really, what happens is that first of all, there's a presumption of advancement. You have gifted this property to your wife. In your mind, the intention from the beginning was that it is her own, right? And the court will help you to protect that right, to protect that intention. Okay, and really, let me try and read out something.
Okay, so whilst you're at it, Mr. Anaya said it's actually he's actually asking the mortgage opportunities for both individuals and couples. So we'll just note this out, sir. We'll note this out, and then we'll create a show out of it. We'll create a show out of it so that we can explain and break it down and share all the opportunities available, all right, around this. So he's asking for both individuals and couples.
And couples. It's all right. There's no
Yeah.
problem about that. So as I was saying,
Yeah.
Ordinary, okay, let's take it outside so it will be logically explained. If you, Mr. Jeff Anozie, buys a property in my name
Okay.
and gives it to me, we're not married, of course. We can't be married. Certainly can't be married. Right. So if that is the
Yeah.
position, can you take it back from me as a gift?
Okay. No, no, I can't. I can't. It's a gift.
All right.
So
So that's what the court helps you to do when both of you are having marital issues. They see it
oh,
as a gift, a presumption. So once, and of course, remember that in court, in civil matters, what the court looks at is the preponderance of evidence, the weight. So if the wife is able to prove, and there's absolute proof of the fact that it was a gift to her, then it is hers. It's a different ball game entirely when the woman brings, okay, now there are instances when the woman will bring all the money and give it to the husband, and then the husband now buys the property in his name.
okay.
Do you get the twist? Now,
Yeah.
in that context, if the woman by receipts or by some proof can show to the court that indeed it was her money, then the court will ensure that the property goes back to the woman.
Oh. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
You
Okay.
get, so there's some level of partiality as far as in masculine and feminine gender is concerned. In in
Obviously.
you get, so
Uh,
when it goes the other way, they look at it this way. When it goes the other way, they say it's presumption of advancement. When it goes the other way, they will say, So I think in summary, that's how that works. That is how it works.
awesome.
And then
Awesome.
if this one brought 80% and the other one brought 20%, what you also should do at that point is, and even if, okay, this one brought 80% and the other one brought 20%, and it is now in the name of the husband, what the wife can do when they're separating at that point is to prove her 20%. And that is why, again, before you go into this transaction, it's important that you may have to document that you sent, and then when you are transferring the money to your husband, as part of the discussion, write my support for the land.
For real.
Like, this is funny,
Wow.
but it's an
Wow.
amazing advice, really. It just came to my head right now. You get,
Okay.
so
Okay. Okay. Okay.
that
Awesome.
that
Awesome.
helps. That helps. Or if this one would sound a little harsh, get your husband to sign the receipt receiving so and so amount in
In support of the land.
purchase of the land that both of you are buying in his name. So at the end of the day, even if the property is in his name, right, what will happen is that the court, once you're able to prove your 20%, the court will look for a way to split it and you take your 20%, no matter what the value of the land had become at that point. So
Wow.
I think that's that.
Wow. Wow. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. This has been a very amazing show. This has been a very educative and amazing show. Please, if you learned anything, please let us know in the comments. If there's something you have learned so far, you still have questions. Thank you all for joining. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit the like button down there. If you've not subscribed to this channel, you can see the amazing things you are missing. So please hit that subscribe button as well. And you can always get first-hand information whenever, in fact, front row tickets to this type of shows, all right, so that you get the meat, all right, of these things. And by the way, if you want to consult on a personal level, this is by no, this is an advert. Contact with Barrister Raymond here, and
It's
he
not
will.
an advert too. I'm not the one doing it. I'm setting the record straight now.
Okay, so if you need any personal, any personal consultation, please, you can always hit him on this number, or both on WhatsApp or on call, so that he can help you with any personal consultation you may have. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Anayo. Anayo said you guys are
You guys,
brilliant, great content. Thank you so much, sir.
thank
We
you. I appreciate
appreciate
you, sir.
that. Appreciate you, sir. Okay, so on this note, we'll draw the curtains on today's show. If you have questions afterwards, you can always leave it in the comments section. We will go through, we will see it, and we will respond. If there are topics you think you want us to treat on this show, if we need to bring in a surveyor, we are going to bring this surveyor here, a registered surveyor. If you need us to bring in a carpenter, we're going to bring the carpenter here on this show. If you need us to bring whoever it is, we'll bring the person on this show so that we can get, if it's a building engineer or someone from Ministry of Lands, we can bring the person on this show so that we can help solve or answer questions around buying property in Nigeria. What are the red flags? What are the do's and the don'ts? So that we can all help ourselves and kick off the bad entities that are spoiling the real estate industry in Nigeria, and we can have a very robust and healthy and peaceful real estate investment as far as Nigeria is concerned. So thank you so much, my brother and colleague, Barrister Raymond Ijoma. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Mr. Joshua. Thank you, Mr. Osita. Thank you, Mr. Anayo. Thank you, everybody, for watching. That is watching without commenting. Thank you so much. We appreciate you for jumping on this show. Now, till we come your way next time, Mr. Barrister Raymond, do you have any final?
I just wish to say that I love them all so much, and would always, by God's grace, would continually do this for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We are committed to doing this for you as on this show. All right. Thank you so much. So till we come your way again, same time next week, same channel. Remain safe, remain blessed, enjoy a fantastic week. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye for now.